Hey guys, welcome to another interview. So this time we have Jason and Maria. So to give you guys a bit of a context, so Jason was the one who joined my program, joined himself. And Jason, do you remember how long ago that was?
Sorry, we've got dogs, but that was April 20th of 2022.
Okay, so
So about
yeah,
3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months ago. So I guess without further ado, I guess Jason, Maria, tell us how things were like when Jason first joined the program. How was the relationship like? How was life like back then?
Do you want me
It
to start?
was, yeah, I think Jason should speak.
Okay, so we've been married about 3 years. We've been together for 8. And just for a little past context, we're both divorced. We both have adult daughters now. And I think from my point of view, I thought I had everything figured out. I made all the mistakes in my previous relationship. I think Maria thought she made all the mistakes in the previous relationship. So I kind of went into this relationship with the attitude of, I got it. I know everything now. I know what not to screw up. We both come into a relationship with our preconceived ideas, or, from what I've learned from the program, being hypothetical and already having an idea of what things are without really being curious. So one of the things is like, well, I would never cheat on her, yet she, in her previous relationship, she was together with somebody for 20 years that started to cheat on her. So it was a very sensitive subject for Maria. So when I would have behaviors that were contrary to reassuring her, I would get all offended and like, well, how dare you accuse me of this? How dare, I'm not like this. It's that whole self-identity thing where you're questioning who I am. This is not who I am. So then I started to blame her. It's like, well, this is her problem. And not really taking the time to really understand that what I was doing was severely affecting her. And I'm sure it came off to you like I didn't care. So I think that whole thing started really the negative feedback loops that we talk about a lot, where I have a negative emotion that you're accusing me. It causes a negative emotion in her where she feels like, well, why are you getting upset at me? What did I do wrong? Which puts more blame on me, which puts more blame back on her. And then we just get to the point where we both are, I know for me, I put all the blame on her. And it put her in a really bad position. So now it comes out in my behavior and everything. So I don't know how I was so stupid, because it put her in a really shitty place where, I mean, if I were where she was at, and I'm thinking that I'm going out and doing all these terrible things because that's what she's giving me, I would have gone insane. I don't know how she was able to do it.
Yeah. Maria, what was it like? What were things like from your perspective?
From my perspective, he was extremely defensive. There were some behavior changes, and I think that's why I started getting more, just like, I just didn't feel safe. I felt like he was, being deceitful, possibly cheating, just because of the behavior. It was very, very, he was very defensive. And just to put it simply, there was some behavior changes that coincide with behaviors that are equal to that of someone who is being deceitful or not loyal.
Yeah. Maria, how painful was it for you, emotionally speaking, when you were in the middle of that process, in that plight, I guess, back then?
I mean, you can just imagine if you put yourself in my position. I'm not that type of person that is gonna break down and cry because it's my my skin is too thick for that. I've been through too much, but I would tell Jason, if you could just put your daughter in my place, I think that would help you realize how unsafe or humiliated or not part of the family. I think that would help you realize how I feel. It's just you don't feel like you're loved or appreciated or all those
Yeah.
about
I think,
you
yeah,
ever.
I kind of understand that because I kind of went through the same thing with my partner too, where I was playing your position, Jason, where I thought I was so perfect. I thought I was so high value. I thought I was so good. And here's what my partner told me, and I think this can resonate with you, Maria. It's like, okay, Jeff, here's the rub. Okay, I've been with you at that point in time for 3 years, Jeff, and I'm so unhappy. Every day, I wish things can change. I dreamt about this relationship that I wanted to have when I was an adult, with this Prince Charming and everything like that, where I can feel happy. And now I realize that I picked the wrong dude. Now I've been 3 years into it and I'm miserable. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that this guy thinks he's so awesome. He's so perfect that whenever I try to tell him how miserable I am, he sees it as an attack on on him. He gets defensive, he gets pissed off. So I'm miserable and I can't even talk about it. I can't even express it, no matter how I express it. Right? So it's this catch-22 where if I don't talk about it, nothing happens, obviously. If I talk about it, I get pinned in as to my fault. If I leave the relationship, somehow I'm the villain because I'm the one who's not committed. I'm not the one who's like, till death do us part. I didn't fall into that promise. I mean, think about how hopeless that feels. And as soon as you told me that, I woke up. I was like, whoa, you're right. This is insane. Is that kind of how you felt, Maria?
Yeah, exactly. Just couldn't imagine. I cannot imagine how someone could treat someone like that. Like, if my daughter came to me and felt unsafe or not reassured that I didn't love her, I would be devastated. Like, well, what do I need to do to help you feel safe and reassured? But he didn't do that. It was my problem.
Yeah, I was the biggest impediment. I was in my own way. I could not see it because, we get a lot into learning about the victim mindset in this, and it makes me feel it's that dopamine hit of feeling right. Like, oh, well, it's her problem. I don't, and it makes me not have to deal with it. Yeah. But yet I'm seeing the relationship fall apart in front of me, and she's reaching out, but I'm hanging on to this idea that it's her fault because and I know this now, but it's like, why didn't I see it? It's because it's because of how I was interpreting things.
Yeah. You know what's the saddest thing? I remember, and I don't know if this happened in your relationship too, because it happened in mine, was whenever I would get really defensive and I would get really upset with my partner for telling me how unhappy she was, all my flaws, everything like that. And I would raise my voice. I would shout. I would scream sometimes. And my partner would be quiet. But I interpreted her being quiet as, yeah, I put her in her place. I won this argument. But I realize now I didn't win that. My partner is just so hopeless, so like lost on what to do with this. I don't even know what to do anymore. Let me just retreat inwards. Let me just forget this. Yeah, is that kind of what happened too?
Yeah, I had given up. I was just waiting for the right time to just say, I'm done. I'm moving forward. We're selling the house, whatever. I actually put a piece of paper in my office and I hung it on the wall. And it was a date, March 18th, something, 21. And I said, from that day, I'm done. So it was just finding yep, I told you so, this isn't for you. And that's when we had the big blowout here in the house. It was a pretty big blowout. So that involved his parents. So, but by that time I was like, yeah, this solidified everything that I knew. And I'm not part of a family. I'm not part of a team.
Yeah.
I don't feel loved or safe. So this just showed me and I'm out. So I actually had a date
You know.
on my walk.
Yeah.
It was right in front of my face, but my dog didn't see it or acknowledge it.
With
I
a
didn't-
red marker.
Yeah, it was right there.
I
And I
can
think-
bring
I think the other interesting too that you said, Jason, was this feedback loop that was happening with both of you too. And we're going to talk about this deeply later. But, you know, you're playing your defensive behavior. I think, Maria, initially, you didn't give up right away. When Jason was playing the defensive behavior, you would try to explain to him, try to talk to him. Maybe sometimes you would kind of get defensive back sometimes. Because my partner did that too. Like, it's just human nature to do it. But as you try to explain, as you try to double down on trying to coach and tell Jason what to do and what he should do, Jason gets more defensive. And so this feedback loop cycle just keeps happening where both people just becomes more and more bitter, more and more upset, more and more angry, more and more hopeless, more and more whatever. And you guys are just both feeding into that cycle.
Yeah. Sure did. Yeah. We were feeding into it big time because I wasn't going to back down. I'm not going to be treated that way. I'm going to get, I'm going to stand my ground. And the more I stood my ground, the worse it got because I'm not going to, allow for myself to be not loved or respected or not part of the family. I know that I'm valuable. If I'm not valuable here, then I'm out.
Yeah. And it's that notion of like, I'm a high value person too. And I should have options too. I shouldn't be stuck in this position when I'm so miserable and have nowhere to go. I should have somewhere to go. So contrast this to how you guys are like now. Obviously things are not perfect, obviously, because you've only been in the program for 4 months. But what changed?
Well, I can speak to that. I think that, what has changed for the positive is that he does answer my questions, that he does answer my concerns. I've always, unfortunately, what he does for a living, he's allowed to be out there, right? Are you allowed to say what you do for a living?
Yeah, I've been a cop for 26 years.
Yeah.
And I work narcotics, so I'm not in uniform. It's a lot more freedom. So I'm all around the whole city.
Right. And so I don't, this is stereotyping, but, yeah, I'm not going to stereotype. The thing is that he has more is flexible to put it bluntly, to not be loyal, And so when I would ask, well, what's your search warrant about? Then it would be a big blowout. I'm like, I'm just asking what it's about. Like that kind of stuff kind of stirred it more. But positively speaking, he has no problem saying, oh, hey, I have a search warrant on this. It's about this. It helps a lot just because I feel like he cares. He cares that I feel safe now and I am a very, before it was like, why are you asking? Like, you're not interested in what I do, but I am 100% interested. And so I, hope that I have also been able to communicate that part that I am interested in. I do care, so that has changed for the positive. And the fact that we are able to discuss things, whether whether there's a solution or not, is also positive. One thing that I have been talking to Jason about is that conversations don't have to be very kumbaya-ish, so to speak. They could be hard and they can hurt and they don't have to have a solution, but at least everything is out there and we can compartmentalize, where we can move from that. So at least we're speaking and there's no shouting matches, there's no tantrums, that kind of stuff, because we're at least talking about it. Even though it doesn't feel good or we don't agree about something, we are talking about it. So that's for the positive, to answer your question.
Yeah, I love that too. It's kind of the same thing with my partner too, and this is something I teach in the program too. Jason, you know this very well, right? It's like for every conversation, you always want to prioritize safety rather than the solution itself. Because if you create safety and you allow both people to actually talk about what needs to be talked about, the solution will come naturally. It will come
Yeah.
eventually. Like,
But
but I
doesn't have
guess,
to
yeah.
wait.
Maria, how about the feeling side? Do you still have that piece of paper put up?
I do. I take it down.
We threw that one away.
So, yeah, you threw it away?
Well, it's in the date passed.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't throw it away. He must have thrown it away. It
I'm
was on the,
guessing the hopelessness isn't there anymore. Like, do you feel hopeful? Do you feel good about the future of your relationship? How, like, if you look at the future of things between you guys, how would you feel?
you know, I have a problem because I am extremely persistent in what I do for a living, and I'm very successful in what I do for a living because I'm persistent, but that doesn't help in a relationship. You know, I'm not one that gives up. So of course I'm going to try everything, right? So I feel hopeful because as long as we're able to discuss things, and even though they're ugly or we don't agree on something, but there's no tantrums or, you know, shouting matches or anything like that, I feel hopeful that we can move forward. I think that it's my responsibility to help Jason realize that things don't have to have a solution right away. You know, that we can put it somewhere where it's comfortable for him, comfortable for me, and find a medium ground. So I do feel hopeful because of the discussions that we've been having, and because he is reassuring me. Now, I have to tell you that I feel bad that he sends me all this stuff because I wish that wasn't necessary, but it's necessary right now for me.
It's
Yeah.
like she's on taking the program too. But sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. So I guess the first point I want to make here for the audience too is, you know, people always think reconciliation is this amazing moment of like overnight it's just, oh, we're reconciled and everyone feels great. But that's not how it works, right? That's not how reconciliation works. Reconciliation never feels like that. It feels very anticlimactic because the reality of life and relationships is that entropy is a very big thing. Problems happen. Both of us, because we're adults, because we go through life, we carry our own baggages. We have disagreements sometimes. And especially when we have a bad history to our relationship, there's a lot of baggage to deal with, right? But I think, to me, if I could pinpoint what the moment of reconciliation is when people no longer feel like they're in a catch-22, when they feel like, yeah, this may not be perfect, but we do have the perfect process to get to that supposed end of the rainbow kind of thing. We'll never get
That's
there,
well
but it's
said.
okay. Yeah.
That's very well said. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So
True.
I think when you were talking about your hope, right? Because like a lot of interviews and couple interviews and testimonials always talk about like, oh my God, it's so amazing now, right? And I love your approach, Maria, because it's not like that.
No.
What's amazing is that now I can discuss it. I can hope. I can talk about it. I can look forward to the future. And I think Jason is the same thing for you as well, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing, really the biggest, because we talk about a lot in the program, and I think what I've attached to most in this program is you talk about being addicted to the process or enjoying the process, you know. And I've heard you comparing it to working out. I like to compare it to working out. I mean, I'm not like a bodybuilder or anything, but I'm
You're pretty fit. You got like
Yeah.
some biceps going.
it. And it's like when you compare it to your mom going to the gym, it's like, oh, she goes and she twirls her hips for 2 hours. Well, that doesn't really do anything, you know.
You're not supposed to say that. She's gonna listen to this one. But anyway. But yeah, I totally get what you mean. It's about the journey of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where, for me, there's always something, even though I fuck it up, I still fuck it up. You know, I say the wrong thing.
Well, if I can interrupt here, he says he does, but I think, again, I'm going to enforce the fact that I have to help him realize, because there's people like this. I have to help him realize that there doesn't have to be a solution. So when he says he messes it up, he means that his voice starts escalating, he gets frustrated, and because I'm angry, he thinks he screwed up. He didn't screw up. We're talking about it. That is success that we're talking about it. Because we don't find a solution that he likes or that I like, that doesn't mean it's success either. What is success is that it's been discussed and it's out there and it's at least compartmentalized somewhere where I feel okay about it and he somewhat feels okay about it. And I'm sorry, but we have to have a gray area. I'm not much into gray areas, but this is where we have to have a gray area. It has not happening that much, just with little situations, but you know, he needs to realize he's not messing things up. It's just that it doesn't have to be kumbaya-ish, if that's a word.
Yeah. And I think if I could akin it to my own relationship too, because we've been together 8 years too, just like you guys. We're not married yet. That's the only difference. But, you know, our relationship's pretty strong. I would think, because she tells me every day that there's, because she's pretty wealthy, she's has pretty high influence. A lot of people hit on her, everything like that. But she's always kind of like, okay, these guys compared to Jeff, they're kind of kindergartners. I'm not gonna deal with this. But if I look at my relationship, there are still issues, right? She does bring up baggage from the past, because I was very toxic back then. But yet, despite those problems, despite us having issues, I would say we're unbreakable still. And that unbreakability is the fact that not only can we talk about things like this, but whenever she talks about something with me, whether she shares it in a very hostile way sometimes, in an angry way, it doesn't matter. She never regrets it. Every time she shares it, she feels good about it. She feels heard, she feels understood, listened to, and we may not get to the solution overnight, but eventually we will. We come to an understanding. Maybe that takes months. Maybe that takes a year sometimes. I don't know, over bigger issues. But it's always rewarding to share. And that's something that's actually very rare to get in life, right? Think about what other forms of life or parts of life can you actually do that? Can you actually talk about your deepest things, what you're upset about, fully express yourself, how you actually feel? Where do you get that? Nowhere. But if you get that at home with your partner, it's that feeling you get when you come home from work and you just like strip down to your underwear. It's like, I don't need to put on a costume anymore. I can just be free.
That's
right.
That's
the best feeling in the world, right? That's what makes it unbreakable. Would you? You guys are just nodding your heads.
No, that's true. And I will add to that and say, you have to have that type of environment like my daughter has with me, and not with her dad, but we have that type of environment. But also I have to be very cognizant of the fact that I will never use it against her. That would be horrible if I use anything that my daughter said to me in a vulnerable stage to ever use anything against her. And that's what I expect out of Jason. And he did for me. I should never use that.
But that's what I did.
That's what you did.
Her vulnerability was, even though she logically knew I'm faithful, but emotionally, I wasn't understanding that because I kept coming at her with logic and it wasn't helping. So instead of reassuring her, I'm trying to force her to think a certain way, and it completely destroyed whatever the comfortability. She's not taking off her clothes. I'm not literally, but like the analogy you use, she don't feel comfortable doing anything now. Because like we talked about, or like you said, if she tells me I get pissed, or then she doesn't tell me and her mind goes wild and she's got nowhere to go. So yeah, I mean, now seeing it again, it's like the whole thing about there's an analogy you use about the road rage when we're talking about seeing, it's called the seat of consciousness, when you see yourself outside yourself. And I like to use the road rage thing a lot because I'm like, man, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
I'm pulling over and a guy got out with a baton and we're going to get a fight over what? And then what was I thinking? So this is the same thing, right? I go back, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Why was I doing this? And it comes back down to, I didn't know how to get out of my own way. And I already had my preconceived idea of what things should be because I wasn't asking questions. I wasn't being curious. I wasn't looking at it from her point of view. So
yeah, so I want to discuss the second point, which is interesting, kind of segues very nicely from your point here, Jason, which is this notion of there's this thing that people say often, two to tango, right? And I think people say it in the wrong ways. They think about it in the wrong ways. So I think if I could look back to your past, here's how you guys saw it. Jason, here's how you saw it, right? Well, she doesn't want to try to fix the relationship. So fuck, why should I try? Why should I give a crap, right? There's something I can do about it. And I think, Maria, there's some, I don't know you, but there might be some of that too as well in your mind as well, where, oh, Jason's not doing anything about it. So you know what? I'm just going to give up. Who cares, right? There's no hope here. So this two to tango thing, people always think about it as such an insightful insight, but it's not. It's actually very disempowering because here's a very good evidence right here, you two, where Jason joined the program alone. I had to beat the changes out of you. I was a lot of tough love, a lot of just very difficult truths that you had to accept. But once you woke up and you started to change your behavior in the relationship, Maria, you found it easier to change yours as well, right?
Yeah.
Tell me your thinking.
What I told him was that, listen, I gotta tell you that, as a Christian, if I see somebody trying, you just can't throw them out. It doesn't work that way, So I saw him working extremely hard. So I can't leave him in the dark if he's working on something. So I told him, I see that you're working. You need to check in with me. What are you working on? What are you studying? Let me help you. We did this last night, actually. And for us, just so you know, for us, now I have to say to myself, is this a bunch of bullshit? Or should I let him finish the program? So for a time, I had to take care of myself because no one else was, right? No one else was taking care of myself, my spirit, my feeling a part of a family. So I need to make sure that I'm not being snowed, right? So I have to make sure this isn't bullshit.
So let me pause there because I find that really interesting, right? Because so you're pretty familiar, Maria, I think, with the program now.
Yeah.
Right.
And say, what are you studying now? Or what are you working on now?
Right. Because like a lot of people, when they hear the words relationship coach, it has such a bad rap, right? You see like these YouTube videos talking about like, oh guys, just say this or just say that, or all these manipulative things to assert their power, their dominance, whatever it is. Oh, get a woman who will listen to you. I mean, I don't know what people say. It's crazy stuff. When you first heard that Jason wanted to join this program and was doing this program, what was your initial thought?
Oh, he's playing a waiting game for many reasons. If I hold on to the house longer, this can happen, or I don't want to live alone because the rent is high, or it's going to be a horrible moving out. It wasn't because of me. It was because of him. He was looking out for himself is what I initially thought.
Yeah, it's almost like that visual of I'm flawed. I know I'm flawed. This is Jason from your perspective. I'm flawed. I know I'm flawed. I know I'm not the great person to be around. But instead of me doing the internal work to really renovate this self, I'm just going to learn ways to pull her in so that I don't have to be alone. It doesn't matter if she wants to be here or not. I don't really care. What I care about is I'm not alone. I have someone, etc. Maria, is that kind of how you saw it initially?
Yeah, I actually told him, and he said something that again reminded me that I'm a Christian. Is that he said, I don't care what you do. I just need to make sure that I improve myself. So that was like, oh, okay. He is serious about this. So
Jason,
So
were
he
you
is-
scared? Were you afraid? Go ahead, Maria. Sorry, I cut you off.
he was letting me go. He gave me permission to go, but he said, I just need to work on this program. And if you need to go, that's okay. I need to take care of my behaviors. And I'm going to do this. And if you want to stay to see the results, that'll be great. If not, I understand.
And that's what we tell our clients to actually do and think and say, because Jason, were you scared of, when you first joined this program, were you scared to join it thinking that this might be misunderstood completely by your partner in the beginning?
No, I didn't think she'd, well, yeah, I mean, I guess like, I guess there was some part of me that thought that like, this could just be, she could interpret what I'm doing as just a trick to win her back, and then once I get her back, then it'll all go back to the same way, because I was looking at all sorts of narcissist videos because I had it in my fucked up thinking that's what she was, and that she was going to think I was love bombing her, and then once I got her back in my grasp, it would be all,
Great.
I was afraid there was going to be too much for her to overcome. Once I realized it was too late, because obviously when you get into a program like this, you're going to be desperate, and that's where I was at. So yeah, I thought maybe she would have seen it as me being desperate or just trying to win her back instead of actually really making some type of change within myself that would make the relationship better.
It's funny, we have this conversation right now because we say in the program too, right? Because a lot of men, they worry about enrolling in the program sometimes because their wife would be angry if they do. But just note this. People are rational people. Like, the people are not crazy, right? So the main reasons usually your partner resists you joining a program like this is because they don't trust what the program is, meaning they don't know what it's about yet. And we talk about this in the program too, how your partner usually is tired of your promises. They're tired of your repeated cycles. Mm-hmm. So it's been probably in your case too, and in everyone's case listening to this, if you're on the brink of a divorce, right? If you're on the brink of the end of your relationship, it's usually that your partner has been very unhappy. She's been trying to tell you about it a long time. You just say the right things, do the right things in that moment with your charm to get her to just stay one more day, kind of thing. But then she realizes that nothing is getting better. So she expresses her unhappiness again. You say something to get her to trust you again. And the cycle just keeps happening over and over again. And it's almost like that saying of, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, 20 times. Man, shame on me, man. Right? So when you say to your partner, like, I want to join this program to work on myself, sure, your intention could be very good. I want to work on myself. But your partner could be thinking that, he's just saying he's working on himself to just say the right things at that moment. But
Right.
time and time again, right? Like your case or anyone's case, only time can tell whether your intentions are genuine or not. Right? So if you're worried about the short term of your partner getting angry, I would say, don't worry about that yet. Just go make the deep changes. And I think everyone will see for themselves what you're made of. Right? But if you quit, like if your partner says to you, don't buy this program, and you go, oh, fine then. I really ask yourself, can I actually make this internal shifts myself, or do I actually need help? Don't just think about the short term, think about the long term here. Does that make sense to people? I guess.
We were seeing a therapist, and he was good. He was good at diagnosing the problem, and but it's like, okay, now I got to wait a week or 2 weeks to go back for an hour where when we're in the therapy session, it's like, okay, well, this makes sense. But as soon as we get out of it, I don't know how to do, like his whole thing was like, okay, well, Maria's reality is this. You have to acknowledge that reality and you have to reassure her. It doesn't matter what the logical, what's actually happening. She needs to feel this. I'm like, well, but I would just get pissed. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. So how?
Yeah, he would say, well, how much reassurance does she need? And he would pause and say as much as she wants.
So yeah, I mean, and like I said, I mean, the therapist was on the right track, but it just wasn't with the program. I can go back anytime. There's 5 different ways to get an answer. And and so I can see what other people are doing. I can see how other people screw up. I'm like, oh, you should have done that. So it's always there, and it's always, I guess I keep coming back to a process. Instead of having somebody just tell me what to do, I'm learning how to do it for myself. And it's always work on it.
But that's so crucial, right? So they have this thread right now where they're bashing me, right? A bunch of therapists are just bashing the crap out of me without allowing me to even like respond, saying like, oh, Jeff, you claim that your goal is to make people their own doctors so that they can know what to do themselves, they can diagnose, they can treat themselves. And to me, it's like, no, yes, I do say that. And that's a necessity. Because if you don't do that to someone, if you don't help someone do that, know that in a relationship, you're going to be facing a million different permutations of what could happen. If you don't make it so deeply ingrained, the right behaviors ingrained in someone's life, sure, they may be doing 1 or 2 things right here and there that is scripted, but they're not going to be getting the day-to-day things, the unconscious things that they do, the unconscious emotions, speech. It's not going to permeate through everything that you do. But it's the little things that count. Because again, your partner is, Maria, you in a position where, you know what, I'm sick of your fake changes here, right? And in order for me to know your changes are real, I don't care if you do some nice things here and there sometimes. I don't care about that. I care about when it's impossible for you to fake your changes. When you're tired, when you're sleepy, for example, when you're thrown curveballs, when you're given something that you didn't expect, you couldn't have scripted out, you couldn't have faked. What do? If you keep going back to your old self during those moments, then Maria's going to think, forget it. This is just another one of those rules, right? So those therapists are like, yeah, oh, you can't do that. Well, we do that, and we must do that, and we have done that. And you are kind of the proof of that, right?
Well, yeah, agree. And I feel like I can disagree because I've had many counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists in my life. And so I feel like I can speak to the fact that we need to work at being our own doctors. Absolutely. We have to use the tools that we were given, and like any type of medication that you need, say for, anxiety or depression, it's just a medication. You need to learn the behavior part of it. Those are the tools. Mm-hmm. So eventually we do become our own doctors because we have the tools. For example, before we, mouth off to someone or disagree with someone, we have to use that tool of curiosity.
Yep.
Well, why are you asking? What's bothering you? What makes you feel that way? Why do you do what you do? I mean, you have to be curious before you start mouthing off or stereotyping or making someone feel bad. So yeah, we have to be our own doctors, and as long as we are given those tools, which I see that Jason has, and you use the tools, then we start slowly to become our own doctors.
Right. Because it's dangerous if every time something happens, Jason comes and go, oh, hold on, I got to call my doctor. I don't know what to do here. It's like, first of all, it's not even your decision. It's not even what you want to do. It's what someone else does. So it's not going to land on me anyway. But I want to go back to this topic too of it doesn't take two to tango. Because again, we talk about this feedback loop going in a negative direction where Jason was doing something negative, Maria responds in a negative way, vice versa, etc. And the reason why I say it doesn't take two to tango is that we cannot forget the role of environments in changing people's behavior. And this has happened in my relationship too, right? So when we say it doesn't take two to tango, it doesn't mean that, Jason, I'm teaching you how to change Maria. No, right? What I'm saying is, first, change yourself first. You got to change yourself first because you have to become that leader who can look at the existing feedback loop that is going in a negative direction, not get sucked into that, not get tethered to it. Once you untether to it, you can actually do something to reverse it. That's what leaders do, right? Leaders are never tethered. You look at a company, everyone's like panicking, everyone's scared, everyone's whatever. The leader, what does he do? He goes against the grain. He leads. He doesn't crumble with, he doesn't play into that script. So first, be a leader first. Understand the internal shifts to be that. Then understand the shifts for you to understand how to change the culture of the environment. And you look at a company, it's the same thing. Let's say their employees are lazy. They're not going to go in, the good leaders are not going to go in and punish their people, right? They're going to go in and change the environment to make it easy for the employees to change their behavior. That's what we do. It's internal shifts, identity shifting, bulletproof vest. Once you have that, use the frameworks to change the environment, which is in this case, create safety. Once you create that, you'll be surprised as to how easy it would be for your partner to change her own behavior. And once your partner changes her own behavior and creates safety for the environment, it makes it easier for you to continue that as well. Was that kind of the pattern that unfolded for you guys?
Well, yeah, because I mean, like most people going in the program, one of the other many things that I latched onto is like somebody needs to take responsibility. Somebody needs to break the feedback loop. Somebody needs to be the hero. I kind of like the whole idea of being the hero, and it's not letting somebody just accepting blame and letting somebody walk all over you. It's accepting the responsibility. And once I accepted the responsibility, the whole idea of, well, when's she going to start taking responsibility? How come she doesn't admit to this and that? It was so beyond that. But once I did, I think, and Maria probably could speak to this, I think she felt almost an obligation to also look at the relationship and start, because at some point she flat out asked me, she's like, well, you're taking all this responsibility. What do you need me to do? And I didn't ask her that. I was like, I don't even think I'm supposed to be asking you that, So it just happened naturally without me having to force anything, because I'm not expecting her to engage in a relationship she's been absolutely miserable in. How can I expect her to do that? So that's, you're talking about two to tango. It only took one, and she was open.
Marie, what was your thought process throughout? And so as you saw Jason trying to obviously change himself in a very long-term way, what was your thought process? How did it evolve?
What the thought process was, what it was like, okay, I see him working hard on this project, if you will, and I I see him working hard. so I told him so I'm a communications major, right? So I have to be, if I wasn't helping, that shame on me, right? So I'd be like, okay, so you do know that you have to check in sometimes, like, so what are you doing so that I can help? Because he looked like he was really trying. So I wanted to see how I could help him along the way.
But I think
You
at
know.
one point at the beginning of this, Maria told me, she's like, I'm done. I'm spent. I've already done everything. This is on you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's fair to say that that's where her
Yeah, that
mindset was
was-
at the beginning.
That was the beginning, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like-
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a couple of takeaways here, just to close off these topics here. Is one, if your partner is resistant to you joining a program, it doesn't have to be mine, just a program in general to better yourself, to like work on yourself. Ask yourself, let's look at the different choices here. If you, let's say, didn't do the program because you're too scared in the short term of what your partner might say, and your partner is saying those things because of a misunderstanding, FYI. So short term, you might please your partner, but are you going to do the right things to actually work, to actually give your partner what she wants, what she needs in the long term, which is your internal changes, right? While if you choose to just say, I'm going to do this program because of me, sure, short term it might be difficult, but long term, think about what you can give, what you can provide there. The shame is when people are a year in, 2 years later, they're still finding themselves in the same position because they just couldn't take the action to do what's right. The other consideration too is, imagine this. Imagine you've been telling yourself, your partner, I'm going to do everything I can to save the relationship. I'm going to do everything I can to work on myself. And so you find a program and you say, I want to do this. And your partner says, no, you can't. Oh, okay, never mind. Does that really show your partner that you are really hell-bent on working on yourself? Or does it show your partner that it's just a fake thing that you're saying, but you don't actually mean it? Think about that, right? Second takeaway too is this notion of doesn't take two to tango. Again, don't waste time trying to find whose fault it is. Who cares? In the same amount of time that you're spending, with the same amount of energy you're spending trying to find out whose fault it is, you could have learned something to do something about it, to change the culture, to change your environment, to actually change your situation so that you don't even have to ask that question in the first place, right? That's all I got to say to people. The next point I want to bring up, Jason, is kind of this high value man thing that you adopted, right? Because he was you doing a lot of things wrong, making your wife miserable, but you thought you were perfect. And you told me yourself, like, when your partner started to give up, when your partner started to be quieter, checked out of the relationship, when Maria was, you interpret that as, see, I told you it's her fault. She's the one who's not non-committal. It's her fault. I'm here. I've never done anything bad. And you see a lot of like this high value people, men, play a lot of the same narrative.
Yeah.
So thinking back, like, how did you get there? Like how were you like that? Like, what do you think caused you to be like that?
Well, I've come to find out through the program a lot of reasons why we get offended on things is because of our own self-identity, how I see myself. So, and I guess that's a form of protection or a form of certainty. So I know who I am. And as soon as somebody comes up against that, I'm going to get offended because, oh, you're challenging who I am. So Maria was sitting here trying to tell him, like, my part of my high value was like, I am loyal. I've got a good character. This is who I am. And Maria, on the other hand, everybody's got anxieties, some because of her past and her past relationships. A lot of her anxiety was generated through not being faithful. So it's like we got two different identities clashing, and now it becomes a pissing contest who's going to win. So the problem is not getting solved because I'm way too wrapped up into my own nonsense. And now I'm starting to protect myself. I'm going to blame her. Like, well, I know that's not, I mean, logically, I know. She doesn't know, but that's her problem. I know what the truth is. And again, it keeps going back to logic. And it never, I mean, I should know by now, you can never be emotional. It's not any emotions using logic. Because that just makes her feel like even shittier. Because now on top of her feeling like, well, I don't trust you, now I'm telling her you're stupid. Kind of. I mean, I don't know if that's the way you...
It's implied. It's implied because like...
Implied. Yeah. And
okay.
I would never...
It's almost like, okay, you obviously don't have all the answers, so let me tell you, okay? Glad that you came to daddy kind of thing for a solution. It's like, it's very demeaning, right? Yeah. But it's funny, it's like, for me, right, Jason, the reason, if I look back into the reason why I display a lot of the toxic masculine kind of ideologies is, one, look at the archetypes of what it means, what it's supposed to be, what a man is supposed to be, the archetypes of that, right? Mm-hmm. One guy who knows all the answers always, a James Bond guy character, right? He can say the perfect thing, the perfect logical thing, the perfect combination of words that somehow makes women swoon, makes men want to submit to him, right? Just a one-liner. And everyone's like, oh my God. You talk about safety, for example. Safety is about, you know, if you have safety, your partner will talk about emotions with you, right? But think about, if a man talks about emotions with his partner, is he really a man in the worldly archetypes? No. So all these archetypes are creating this man who is too stoic, emotionally illiterate, anti-emotional sometimes, too logical, too demeaning, and who thinks he needs to be perfect all the time. So if your partner tells you about her emotions, most men will just go, oh yeah, I get it. But there's no connection. There's no like feeling to it.
Yeah.
Right? And he can't share his own emotions. There's no safety there. How can you feel safe talking about emotions when the guy don't get it? Secondly, it's like also this idea of needing to be perfect all the time. There's nothing that makes people feel more unsafe than a high value man, because you can't even talk about his flaws to anyone. And the implication too, it doesn't have to be that you say something bad about this person. It could be that, you know, I'm not swooning over this guy. I'm not making this guy out to be like a god. Because in the narrative is, if you are a high value man, you are this Greek god, your woman will make everything easy for you. She will jump into your arms all the time. And if you are not getting that, you get threatened. You go like, am I not a man? I mean, that's how I felt back then.
Yeah. You're not a Greek god.
Nobody is, right? Nobody is. And that's not what you're looking for too. You're not looking for a Greek god, right? You're looking for someone with a process, not a product.
Yeah, you know, and Maria's dated doctors and her ex, you know, I mean, very high value type of guys. And I wasn't necessarily threatened by that or anything, but the mistakes those guys made with her, I'm like, well, I'm not making those mistakes, so I'm blowing those guys out of the water, you know. But by having that attitude, I felt very entitled. I think that's what Maria was saying. I felt so entitled that I should be able to do what I want and say, because I'm not like those other guys. But I'm not seeing my own faults, you know. Yeah. So yeah, it's true.
You know, it's funny because I just made a video on this one, and I kind of akin this to so there's two ways you can look at what being high value of a person is, whether it's a man or woman. I think it's the same thing. I think as a society, we often think about a high value man as the material sense of it, right? So if you look at hierarchy of needs, the first two layers, which is physiological needs and safety needs, those are material needs, right? You have money, you have financial security, whatever it is, shelter. Then you have the three top layers, which are love and belonging, esteem needs, and self-actualization. Those are more the spiritual needs.
Right.
A lot of men see high value as how much money do I have? How much power do I have? And looking at the low level values of what you provide. So for you, Jason, you weren't looking at, was I giving my wife self-actualization? You were saying, am I giving her at least the bare minimum?
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't make you high value. And then kind of the second way you can look at this too is kind of looking at the dependency model too. Because I think if you look at a lot of men in the start, they're very needy. So you can picture this as like their cup is like half full. So they need someone else to fill that cup, right? They're always looking for approval, looking for whatever. So you approach this needy state and you grow up and you fill your own cup, basically. You find your own career, you find some money, you find some ways to make yourself sustain yourself. Like you're good yourself. And this is where I think toxic masculine people get stuck in, right? They use this feeling of their cup is already full. I have a lot of money, I have a lot of power, I have an influence. I don't need anyone right now. And they think that's the highest value they can get. And I think that's what you felt, right? It's like, I'm so high value because I have everything I need to support myself, really.
Yeah. It's the whole idea of being, I think I'm good enough, but I don't even know what good enough is.
Right. But if you don't have like this full cup, right, you're always going to be very selfish about it. You're always going to be looking at other people as trying to take the water away from your cup or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. You're always going to be like, what's in it for me? Right. How can I protect myself? And that's where you were coming from. But that's not high value. Like if you look at a lot of high value rhetoric, right, it's all about power games. They're always talking about power. What makes me feel weak or not? How can I control this person? How can I get this person? They talk about their sexual conquest like as if it's hunting. It's all about like, how can I use my full cup and make sure that nobody's taking away from me and everyone sees that I have a full cup. It's a very selfish way of looking at it. But the third level is when your cup is no longer just full, it's overflowing now. And when it's overflowing, suddenly your desire no longer becomes, how can the world serve me? Into, oh my gosh, I got to find another cup to fill my overflowing cup. So the desire to use your value to help someone comes up more naturally there. And you look at this like, I was thinking about this in terms of parenting too, because we're trying to have kids now. Because at first, like when we're teenagers, we're very selfish. Then I built my career, but I was still very selfish about it. And later, this desire to somehow help someone, nurture someone else comes naturally, right? It's like the overflowing cup again. So a lot of people who are this toxic masculine people know that you're in stage 2 right now. Okay, you're not the highest value person. If you're still using it selfishly, you're not that high value as you think. True high value people are the ones who actually create value for other people. It's like the difference between like new money and old money to me. Right. So anyway, we're wrapping up an hour here. So I want to talk more about, Jason, your experience in the program, because you had some very interesting kind of notes that you gave to me as well. So earlier we compared it to therapy. I guess compare this program to therapy. What was the experience? How is it different, etc.?
Well, it's kind of said before. I've been seeing, like when I went through the divorce before, I saw a therapist and I really liked him. I mean, he'd helped me out a lot. And then we see therapists. So they're good at diagnosing the problem. It just wasn't enough to wait a week in between for an hour, 50 minutes. It's not enough. Especially, I mean, we're talking about what I'm really trying to do is change who I am. Because I mean, you talk about in the program, I can't, the first 2 months plus or whatever it is, it's all about changing internally. where when I see this therapist, it's like, okay, well, this is what you need to do to help understand your wife. It's like an immediate thing. And I don't have the internal, you'd have to go to therapy for years to have these internal changes. So, but that's the first phase, a couple phases of the program are all about is how do I change, not urgently, but the most efficiently way possible to reinterpret things.
Yeah.
So I'm get to the point of being angry. I don't want to get angry because I don't see it like that anymore. So that really is the biggest thing, is that the program is always there. The process is there. It's like, it's like, again, it's like working out. I can't go work out an hour a week and expect results. I have to do it every day. I have to find out what works for me. And this is what does it, because there's so many tools and so many things to use, which I didn't realize. I thought I was gonna be watching videos and I get to talk to the Jeffrey guy once in a while when he's got time. And it's not like that at all. You know, I thought the YouTube videos were enough. And the YouTube videos were kind of helping me, but not like
Yeah,
this.
let's talk about that in a bit. But like the way I describe it in my own head, because you know the dilemma that I have, Jason, is, you know, my coaching style is very different, I guess. Not only is the content a lot more intense, right? Like people go into the program and they get shocked. Like I have to watch 100 hours of content plus do internal work myself. Are you kidding me right now? Second, I play a lot of tough love too. A lot of tough love, right? And I tell you, I'm very blunt about telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And so I think with therapy, sometimes it's with other coaches who it's hard for them to tell you what you need to hear sometimes, right? To like get yourself out of your way, to get out of your blind spot and just tell you like, dude, this is not, I'm not going to here to make you feel good, but I'm here to tell you fucked up. And here's how you fucked up. Here's how you're fucked up in the head. And you need to fix this right now. Like if therapists can say that in a session, that'd be great, right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
but
no, it's too easy. I need to be held accountable. I'm freaking 49 years old. Do you think I'm going to change by somebody coddling me? No, because I had we had a coaching call, and man, I got blasted.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Honestly, I'm like, I'm not going to be like that guy and have Jeffrey yell at me. He scares the shit.
But you know what it is too, Jason? Like it's a systemic problem. Like, and this is for you too, Maria. Like something that's for people here to think about. It's a systemic problem. And I was reading Dopesick recently, and they were talking about why the OxyContin, like the painkiller, like the opioid crisis started. How did it get so bad? Well, part of the reason was in the US, the hospitals are privatized. So what happens is the hospitals, they're competing against each other, other hospitals, and the reviews are always based on how comfortable they made the patient. So these hospitals are incentivized to not give people what they need, but what they want, which is a lot of painkillers. They don't care if the painkillers made them addicted and ruined their whole life. All they want is that one good review. Now, the dilemma I have is if I play tough love, right? If I am so harsh on my clients because I want the best out of them, I tell them what they need to hear, I risk a lot of bad reviews, right? But at the same time, it's like, that's what people need. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking for help people, just understand that currently the review system of how people are reviewed are not designed to give you what you actually need, but to tell you what you actually need. Like, look at the people who, are they telling me what I need to hear here? Or are they telling me just what I want to hear to make me comfortable and so on? That's a hard one for me. I lose sleep sometimes because I know I'm going against the grain on that one. It's hard.
Well, just a personal story, just a specific story. So I've been practicing the frameworks wrong. I mean, I wasn't getting a basic thing, like the different context, the top, and that's, we had like a 2-hour conversation last night. So I'm like, I don't get it, you know? So, but if you didn't tell me, you know, I had a moment for maybe an hour afterwards where I got all butthurt and I was trying to do something else. But because of the program, I know that's the wrong way to think. I know I have to go back to the answers are all there. So now I can go down the path of, I can figure this out. You know, I needed somebody to point me out. I needed Jeffrey, I needed the group, because I didn't see the blind spot. But if somebody just wants to be nice, that's not going to help me. It's not going to help. It's the same way. If Maria doesn't tell me what's going on, or it's not going to help the relationship if she keeps it a secret. So yeah, I might be all butthurt or something for a minute, but in the long run, I mean, it's the same way for my kid. I can't, because we both have teenage daughters. You know, you can't coddle them and expect them to be successful. So I mean, for me, I need it.
Yeah.
Somebody freaking tells you you're being a moron. So, I mean, I can see how some people may not, but I've seen coaching calls. I've seen you be hard with people and they're resistant, but then later on, I mean,
you know, what is so funny is, like, if I look at, because I have like 53 testimonials right now, interviews like this, all of them, I remember grilling them at one point, like really grilling them. And the thing is, like, it doesn't make me feel good to do it. I hate doing it. Like, my partner knows this. Every time I have one of those tough coaching calls, I actually reel back for like an hour afterwards. And I just like can't do anything for an hour. I just have to take a walk, take a run, whatever it is. But I also know it's necessary, because sometimes people just need, like, we're not coaching someone on mathematics where I can show you, here's the problem, you can see it for yourself, fix it. We're trying to pinpoint people's blind spots, something that they're in denial of for a very long time already. And sometimes, like, the nice words don't really cut it. So I have to realize that too. I think the second thing that you touched on too was about therapy versus the program is that, you know, we talk about this notion of being a performer. And being a performer is that you need to master something, not until you can get it right, but until you can't get it wrong, where your default becomes the right thing. You can't do that with your surface level advice and just once a week thing. You have to, like Jason said, you have to practice that. You have to deliberately practice that, repeat that every time, bake it deep into yourself. And compare this to the YouTube videos. Like, I hate it when someone says, "Oh, I can just learn from your YouTube videos."
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
Jason, what would you say?
Well, it's just so many. It's just one. I mean, I think there's 6 tools you give us. You know, it's one thing. So, you know, it's like, I guess it would be like watching basketball on TV and saying, well, I see how people dribble. I see how they shoot a ball. I'm just going to mimic that.
I can do it.
I can do it because I saw it. I know everything. But the program is, you're getting live feedback. There's never one time I haven't done a post where you haven't given feedback. And the feedback, and I don't want people thinking you're just running around blasting people, because that's not, you give just as much positive feedback. And there's never been a post I haven't put on there that you haven't given some kind of feedback, or I get feedback from other people that have been on there that can tell me what I'm doing right, that can tell me what I'm doing wrong, that I can see them and what they're doing. I'm like, oh, I can see what this guy did wrong. So it's very, very interactive. I mean, I get to see other people's problems, and I'm like, man, I can see why this guy's having problems. So it's more than just, the YouTube videos are just like watching, you know, it's like watching it and expecting and not really participating. So like I said, I got some like instantaneous results, but they weren't going to last because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just mimicking what I'm seeing on a video.
So I see the therapist, i.e. psychologist or psychiatrist, as the pill. And then I see you as behavior, and you need both. To succeed.
Yeah.
You can't do it with a pill. You can't lose weight with a pill. You have to go out and lift weights and, you know, do your aerobics or whatever you need to do to lose weight. The pill's not going to cut it. You need to do the behavior part of it, because that's not going to work. It's taking a pill. Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is, like, everything is very systematic, meaning that everything is more complex than you think, right? So, like for example, I can tell someone, well, stop playing. Here's what the victim mindset is. Stop playing victim, and you'll be fine. I can say that in a YouTube video, but I cannot tell you the unconscious ways you're playing fall into victim mindset that you will never realize. I cannot pinpoint for you how to actually get out of the victim mindset. I cannot pinpoint for you and get you out of your own way by understanding that your situation is not unique. I cannot raise the glass ceiling that you have because you don't see the people who are playing at a much higher level than you are. There's so many other things that's required than just conceptual knowing. From conceptual knowing to experiential knowing is a very vast distance. And a lot of it is like, a lot of people don't appreciate the vast distance between that, I think. And Jason, I think the last thing I'm going to ask you here is, you actually hesitated, right? Because of the cost. You actually said, I don't want to buy it yet.
I was like, wait, it's like we're getting a divorce and we're selling the house. I'm like, man, I'm going to need the money for some furniture, lawyers, you know? But then I'm like, well, if I get a divorce, then it's going to take so much money to unscrew my life. What am I complaining about of the cost of the program? And I remember talking to my dad because I was set, I was ready to go. And I really I was fully convinced. And it's not like a crazy amount of money, but it's enough that's going to make somebody think twice for a second. And my dad's like, well, it's just money. You can always make more of it. I'm like, you're right. But yeah, what you get out of the program is not, you can't really put a price on it.
You can't put a price on education.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't even think about it.
The thing I say to people is like this. I say like, so when you bought it, it was 3,000, I think, right?
Yeah.
When you got it. I said to people like, okay, $3,000, right? Think about this, okay? Think about how shitty of a car you can get with that. Like, you will buy the shittiest car with that. And you're saying to me, this thing I'm telling you that you can get is not worth a shitty car to you? Are you kidding me right now? Like, What are we talking about here, right? So once you put it into perspective like that, it's like, what are you doing?
Well,
but,
yeah.
This is making me feel really good right now because I didn't know it was that much. So he really must care about me.
You didn't know it was that much. Okay. Yeah. Well, now it's above that. Now it's more than that. So,
So this is really making me, you made my day. Thank you. Bye.
Coaching done.
He must care. So,
well, but I mean, think about how expensive it is for a divorce. So I'd rather gamble on, I can put up $3,000 and have a chance of winning the lottery, which is this, or I can, well, the lottery's really having a good relationship, and we talked about it's a different relationship. We're not trying to.
No, I get it, right? I get it.
I mean, it's nothing. Because
like you can cut it this way too, right? It's like, okay, let's say a divorce is what? I don't know how much a divorce is, right? But like, let's say $15,000
for initial consultation.
You have to get all the stuff you have. She get a portion of my pension. It's not about the money, but
like, but if you think about it too, because I've invested like right now $180,000 on my education, right? On like courses since I graduated from college. Okay, so that's additional to college. And the way I think about it is this. So let's say you have to divorce. Let's say you pay $20,000 for the divorce, and you pay $3,000 more for this course. Worst case, even if you do get divorced, you're tacking on an additional 1.5%. Or whatever small number. It's a tiny number. Or like 15%, whatever it is, to whatever you're going to lose. Right? So you have the potential to lose 10 to 15 more percent for the potential to save so much more than that. I just started investing, but that to me is good odds. Right.
Well, not only that, but I'm like, man, hey man, I work all this whatever to like it holds me more accountable. Cause now I'm like, well, now I'm not only emotionally invested, I'm financially invested, and I don't want this to go to waste,
Yeah.
So
Like
but
when you have a personal trainer at the gym and you pay all this money and you're like, oh, the trainer's gone, but I know how to use the tools now. So
yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
just
continue using the equipment.
Yeah.
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 the money's not even
Yeah.
so.
Anyway, I know that was an hour and a half, I think. So we're like close to it, but I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much. Maria, thank you so much for the last minute join. Appreciate it. Jason, thank you so much for being vulnerable, and both of you for being vulnerable.
No. We didn't even talk about all this other stuff that's helped in my life, but that's a to be continued. So
yeah, to be continued.
I feel very fortunate because it gave me something, but
100%. So guys, if you guys want to, I guess, experience what Jason has experienced here, we do have a masterclass that kind of outlines the program that we have, the system that we have. It's about an hour and a half, but I'll include the link down below. You can click that link and join. At the end of the masterclass, we do show you how to apply for the program. So right now, guys, just to be transparent, we are taking in less than 10% of people who apply, just because we want to keep the quality of the program really high, and we haven't been able to hire as fast as we need to. So be sure, if you really want this, fill out the application properly. Don't just like half-ass that. But looking forward to seeing your applications. Jason, Maria, before we leave, any last minute advice for people who were in your situation back then or now, where both people are kind of hopeless, nothing is really working, nothing is really happening, blame gaming going on?
I would have to say that from a person in my shoes, that this is not the time for you to take advantage of the other person's weaknesses or vulnerability. It's a time to have some hope and say, is this really going to help? I will do what I can to help them succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be on the other side where I'm going to take advantage of that person, make them feel horrible for what they did to me, because it's easy to do. You can't do that.
Yeah. I always say, Maria, it's like, because I always say, change the culture, change the environment of your relationship massively enough so that your partner can change her behavior too. And a lot of men say, impossible. My partner is not gonna, it's different. And then I say back to them, if you think your partner is so fucked up to the point where you changing yourself and you changing the environment would not lead to her changing her behavior, then yeah, she's right to leave your ass, because you are her enemy.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I guess my perspective or my advice would be, this, what it is now is not what we both married. This is not.
We were not like this in the beginning.
She's not. We're both good people. We both have good intentions. So that's what it turned into, is not us.
Mm.
So this is a way to get back to why you loved each other and attracted to each other in the first place. So,
Yeah. All right, guys. You guys have a good weekend. What are you guys gonna do for? Yeah. Have a good weekend. Jason, I'll see you in the program. Let me grill you some more. Maria, help me coach him too.
Oh,
all right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.